Dr. Evan Misner, the father of modern networking, the genius behind Business Network International, and a leading expert, or should I say, one of the world's leading expert on business networking.
Here to stay. You know, it was interesting when I started BNI in 1985. The number one question that the media asked me over and over and over again was, is this networking thing a fad?
Today we'll be talking all about networking, about business networking, and we'll be finding out the secret mantra of being successful in the corporate industry, in the business industry, increasing the need of the same.
Well, I mean, I think, listen, who knows what's going to happen 100 years from now, but, you know, in my lifetime for sure, and I hope I have a couple decades left, networking is definitely...
We'll try to find out about Mr. Meisner's story. We'll try to find out something about BNI, and also we'll be learning that is it essential to have a wider network or a deeper network.
I think that's the wrong approach. What you want to do is you want to network with, just focus on quality people. They may be more successful than you. They may be peers. It's great to network with peers. And it's okay to network, what I would call is a network down. You're networking with people who maybe they would not perceive themselves to be as successful as you.
So without any further ado, let's get into it. Welcome to the podcast. Hello, Mr. Meisner. Welcome to Haal Chaal Podcast. And yes, how are you? How's everything?
I am doing great. I'm here in my home office in Austin, Texas. This is my office by my house in Austin.
Wow, that's amazing. And yes, I just want to ask you one thing before we get into this podcast. That is that, have you ever been on an Indian podcast before? Have you ever been on any podcast that is from India? Have you ever been on
many times?
Many times? Okay.
Many times, yeah.
That's
I do about 150 interviews a year, and I have
Wow,
done many in India. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. That's so cool to know. Amazing, Mr. Meisner. So yes, and we are really the whole team is very thankful for having you over here. It's a pleasure for us to, have such a great personality, the father of modern networking over here. So yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So the very first thing that I wanted to ask you, Mr. Meisner, is that what is the basic concept of networking and the benefits of it that you became aware of during the initial stage of your journey?
Well, listen, the primary benefits of networking is to make connections with people that you would like to meet, like to build a relationship with, and improve either your business through referrals or improve your business through knowledge.
Okay.
I did a podcast on the definition of networking, and for those of you who want to read some of my material, it's all free. It's up on ivanmeisner.com. It's all free content up there. And the formal definition is that networking is the process of developing and using your contacts to increase your business, enhance your knowledge, expand your sphere of influence, or serve your community.
That's concise and that's to the point. That's really something amazing. And I guess our listeners would be very, the very important part of this podcast today is networking. And we are having the father of modern networking himself over here. So there are so many questions that me and my listeners are having over here for you. And yes, this was the very first one, but the answer was quite concise. And I am sure that our listeners would be very much enlightened with the same. With that, moving on, the next thing that I want to know from you, Mr. Meisner, is that I want to know about the kind of mindset one should have when they are networking in the corporate sector. Because I guess it's one of the most essential parts, especially in India for students when they enter the corporate sector, is the very first step of theirs in networking. And their mindset is something that should be, I guess, it should be discussed upon a lot, because it's not very much discussed in India, the right mindset which one needs for networking in corporate sector. So what's your thought upon that?
Well, you know, a lot of people teach skill set, but they don't talk about mindset. And you're bringing up a good point. Mindset is extremely important. Probably, I mean, there are a number of things related to mindset. One is that you have to understand that networking is a marathon, not a sprint. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's a way to build a solid foundation for a long-term successful business. So you have to go into it with this concept of it being a marathon. Probably the foundation of what I teach in terms of mindset is this concept of VCP: visibility, credibility, profitability. First, you have to be visible. People have to know who you are and what you do. Then you have to establish credibility, where people know who you are, they know what you do, they know you're good at it. They know you're good at it because you've developed a positive reputation in the community. And then and only then can you get to profitability, where people know who you are, they know what you do, they know you're good at it, and they're willing to refer business to you. And you have to remember that this is a referral process, not a sales process. So a lot of people think that their clients, that they're a profitability with their clients, but they're not unless their clients are giving them referrals. So getting to profitability in VCP is about people being willing to and actually going ahead and referring you. What happens is that people meet someone for the first time, and we don't teach this in colleges and universities anywhere in the world. So that's why networking is done so badly in most cases.
Mhm.
We meet someone and we use it as a face-to-face cold calling opportunity. Hi, my name's Ivan. Let's do business. And they go right to business rather than trying to build a relationship with the other person. So VCP would be the core of the mindset.
That's, I guess that's very true, I suppose, because as you mentioned, people talk about skill set but not about mindset. And I have observed this so much in my, like, in in my own group as well, in the students group that I'm part of. I have also observed this very much, that people, they want to, like, as you said, quick business. They want to just get straight to the business, not talking about the right mindset, establishing the right relationship, I'll say, or the right, taking the right step in the right direction. I guess that's very much missing somewhere, and people don't tend to focus more upon it. So I highly agree upon what you said. And yes, that's with that. The next question that I have for you is that it is a very observed nuance that word of mouth, that is reference marketing, is one of the best forms of marketing, and for that a strong network is needed. What's your thought on that? Like, is it true, is it false, or there are some add-ons to the same fact?
Well, it's very true. All of the studies that I've ever seen show that a referral is much more likely to close into a sale than other mediums of marketing. And that doesn't mean that I don't think we should do other mediums of marketing. I certainly have a website, and I believe in social media and other forms of traditional advertising. But word of mouth is a form of advertising. Referral marketing is very important. And so because we don't teach it, then people don't know how to do it. But it is the most important and the most effective way of generating business in your business. Did that answer your question? I think you had a two-part question in there.
Yes, it's like, it was just the, you have answered the question. The question was that, like, what's your take on reference marketing? Like, for the same, do you need a strong network, or
Oh yeah,
without?
strong network. Yeah, so if your network is a mile wide but only an inch deep,
Hmm.
it'll never be very successful. You need a network that is both wide and in places deep, meaning you have some, you know, a lot of people, but that you have some relationships that really go deep and very connected, and you know they're very willing to help you, and they do, and you're willing to help them, and you do. So your network needs to be both wide and in places deep. You can't have a deep relationship with everybody you meet, but you can have a deep relationship with some of the more important ones. So yeah, it needs to be both wide and deep. And you know, I had a debate with a social media guy a long time ago, and he was like, "No, it doesn't have to be deep. It just needs to be wide. The wider the net, the better." And I'm like, "Well, you know, I will have to." We really argued for like back and forth in emails and once on a phone call for some time. And I said, well, good luck with that. I hope that works for you. I really do. But my experience is that you have to have some really meaningful relationships along that path.
Mm.
And that was maybe 8 years ago or so that we had that conversation. And he's out of business today. He no longer is in that business. And BNI has grown every year for 40 years. We are about to finish our 40th year.
Wow.
And we have 40 years of consecutive growth year on year on year. So I'm pretty confident that my strategy is an effective one.
Definitely. I mean, BNI has grown so much. Like in Ahmedabad, I'll be very honest with you. In my state, in Gujarat, in the city of Ahmedabad, the craze for BNI is amazing. Like, be it my student, be it my friends group, be it my college, be it any corporate, be it any MNC, be it any company, small business, big business, everyone is talking about BNI. In fact, my father was also one of the members at BNI. And we always had this discussion that the importance of network is so much that no one realizes it in today's day and age. When I personally got to know about BNI, I was like, I need to find the man who is behind this. And when I got to know about you, I got to know about your book. If I'm not wrong, the name of your book is The Third Paradigm.
The Third Paradigm is one of my last books, although I just had a book come out last week called Infinite Legacy.
Okay.
Infinite Legacy, and it's about the legacy that one leaves in life. I don't even have a copy of the book yet, but it is available on Amazon.
Oh, I'll be definitely reading it because I'll be very honest. Recently, only I was reading The Third Paradigm, and I was so much invested in that book. I was trying to go and understand the deeper meaning of every single thing that you have.
Yeah.
And I was so much agreeing with the fact, not just that, but also with the fact that networking, building a relationship, as you said, deepening the network rather than widening the network.
And for those people who don't know, the third paradigm is about co-creation. The first paradigm is about competition. The second paradigm is cooperation, and the third paradigm is co-creation.
Mm-hmm.
And a great example of co-creation would be crowdsourcing. If you want to crowdsource something, that's a great example of the process of co-creation. Now, I'll give you like a little secret that is never revealed in the book.
I'm all yours. I'm all yours.
Well, in the book, there is a story interwoven into every chapter, starting with the first chapter. And it's a story about a person named Richard who has an online platform that he's trying to develop. And it starts with competition, having different people compete against each other. Then it goes to, okay, let's work together. And it became cooperation. And both of those failed miserably. And it wasn't until Richard attempted to do the online platform through co-creation, getting all of the stakeholders actively involved, beyond cooperation, getting them involved in the decision-making, that there was success. And you remember, if you've completed the book, you remember that there was a pivotal point in the story where, he knew he was going to have the worst day of his professional career or the best day of his professional career. And because he set this up for co-creation, it ended up being his best day. So that's the story. But there's a lot more to the story, as you know. But here's the part that we don't say in the book.
Okay.
The online platform is BNI Connect, and Richard is my middle name. And so the story is about me, but we didn't want to say that in the book because we wanted people to just read the book. We did say it's a true story, but we never said that the story was about me because we just didn't want the book mostly to be about one of the co-authors. So go back and reread it and go, this is Ivan.
I'll be very honest. I started it and I was halfway through it, so a bit of spoiler, but okay, I'll find. But I really never guessed it. I really never guessed that Richard was you yourself. I was like,
yeah, Richard's my middle name.
Yes, now I have a totally new perspective towards the book. I'm enlightened, I'll say. It's kind of very exciting for me now. Like I'm gonna, again, as you said, I'm gonna read it with more excitement. And
Yeah,
yes,
each in each chapter, the story has sort of it's grayed out. It's got to pull out, so it's pretty easy to find the story in every chapter.
yeah, that's true. I very much agree with that. And yes, to all my listeners, I'll definitely suggest you do read that book. Do give that book a read, because if you are not giving it, you are missing out. So yes. With that being said, the next question that I was having for you, Mr. Meisner, was that I recently came to learn about this concept of neuromarketing. And neuromarketing is an like emerging trend amongst MNCs and businesses. Like everyone is talking about it. And even I have read, and out of curiosity, I looked up into a few research papers and books about the same. I had this one thing that popped up in my mind, that is, how do you think that what, like, in your opinion, what is the future of the same? And do you think it's somehow it is like, mitigating the need of networking, the need of reference marketing, the need of making a strong corporate network, and is it mitigating the same, or is it increasing the need of the same?
Well, I mean, I think, listen, who knows what's going to happen 100 years from now? But in my lifetime, for sure,
Hmm.
and I hope I have a couple decades left. Networking is definitely here to stay. It was interesting when I started BNI in 1985. The number one question that the media asked me over and over and over again was, is this networking thing a fad? Is it just, is it going to come and go? And I kept saying, no, it's not a fad. It's about building relationships, and relationship building in business is not a fad. And it was really interesting that most of the media didn't believe me. They didn't buy it because again, we don't get trained on how to network. And so, if it's a fad, it's been a 40-year fad. And I think you're going to see it continue, because people want to do business with people they know, like, and trust. And they're not going to refer people that they don't have an experience with, a positive experience with. So, no, I think networking is here to stay. As a matter of fact, one of my books, I did a book on gender and networking, the difference between men and women and how they network. And one of the questions we asked was, has networking played a role in your success? And when we merged the men and women together, we had 12,000 respondents. That's a lot, 12,000. Wow. And it wasn't just BNI members, it was open to the public.
Okay.
And of the 12,000 people, 91%, over 91% said that networking has played a role in their success.
Wow.
So, when have you ever seen 91% of any group of people agree to anything ever? But they agreed to this. And so I think that is a good indicator that business networking and relationship building is still going to be important in the future. Might be doing it differently. We might be doing it online more. We certainly are doing it online more within BNI. I mean, in 2019, if I asked BNI members, and for those of you who don't know, BNI meets every week, and one person per professional classification. And in 2019, if I'd have said, next year we're going to all transition from in person to online, people would have been apoplectic. They would have never believed it. But that's what happened with COVID, was that we moved virtually 100% of our chapters, almost 10,000 chapters, to online. Today we have about 11,200 chapters, 75 countries. 68% of the organization has gone back to meeting in person every week. 16% has stayed online every week, but they do socials where they meet in person. And then 16% are hybrid, where they meet in person once a month and they meet online 3 times a month. I think we're going to see a transition over time to more and more hybrid. And as the technology continues to improve, we're going to see some crazy sounding things like holographic meetings and 3D kinds of meetings. We've already had one in Dubai. We had a chapter president show up as a hologram. One of the members there rented holographic equipment to bring in outside speakers without having them to have to travel. And this woman ran the entire meeting as a hologram. And she was able to see the audience and hear the audience, and they were able to hear her. And she ran the meeting. So, I mean, as Star Wars like that sounds, I think it's inevitable with the way technology is advancing.
I, I'm really very like this example of the hologram meeting that you mentioned. I'm so excited now. I'm more excited about the whole concept of networking, that how it's growing, how it's progressing. And is it right for me to say now, after hearing you, I came to this conclusion, I can say, but is it right for me to say now that networking will be there, might be in different, it would be present for a very long time, but in different forms, in different ways, in different forms? Is it right for me to say?
Yeah, I think we're going to see it evolve over time. We certainly have in the last 4 years after COVID. But yeah, it's still going to be important. As long as relationships are important to do business, networking will be around. It was around before I started BNI. People just didn't really teach it. I mean, I wrote the first book ever written on networking back in 1989. There had never been a book on networking. So it wasn't codified as a concept, but, people would, the phrase of it's not what you know, it's who you know existed long before BNI. And so people understood the importance of it. We just didn't teach people how to do it.
That's amazing. I mean, today I must say that this is something that I always mention in our podcast, and today it has been like it just it's happening to me again, and in every podcast it happens with me, and that is that every time in every episode that I do, I get to learn something new. Today it is not just one thing. There are many things that I'm learning. Being a corporate enthusiast myself, one who wants to step into the corporate sector, into the business sector, I am really very much excited about networking and seeing and having this conversation with you. I'm even more excited now. So that's something like I really have to thank you for. That's a great opportunity that today I'm having. And yes, and one thing that I also wanted to know from you is that now we have talked about networking, but the very important thing about networking is the people that you choose, I suppose, the people with whom you are networking. So my next question is regarding that only. That is, how can I assess which people are ideal for building a professional network? Like, there is so many people in the market. Some are really very inspiring. Some are really good for you, or good for your career. But there are some who might not be that good of an addition. Like, they might not be relevant to what you are looking for. So in that case, how should I assess them, and what steps should I take?
Well, I think the thing to look for are people, quality business people. We tend to narrow our focus too much and say, I only want to, I want to find CEOs who will hire me. You're constantly trying to network up. But the problem with networking up, when you network with people who you perceive to be way more successful than you, is that they're hiding from you. They know you're going to try and sell them something. I mean, that's the norm. Is that a lot of people are constantly selling executives, and so I think that's the wrong approach. What you want to do is you want to network with just focus on quality people. They may be more successful than you. They may be peers. Peers are. It's great to network with peers. And it's okay to network, what I would call is a network down. You're networking with people who maybe they would not perceive themselves to be as successful as you. The key is to network with quality people, because you never know who people know. You never know who people know. I remember many years ago, one of the biggest referrals that was ever given came from a cosmetics consultant.
Oh, wow.
Cosmetics consultant gave a multi-million-dollar referral. And the story was that she was at this woman's house, and she was, doing a whole makeup thing with this very successful household. And her husband, the woman's husband, came walking by it was a BNI member who was the cosmetics person. But this husband came walking by with a sheet of paper in his hand, and he's grumbling. He's walking by, and they both kind of chuckled. And then a few minutes later, he walks by again, and he's grumbling. And so his wife stopped him and said, "Honey, what's wrong?" And he said, "Well, I got this new movie that's going to be out soon." It turns out he was a movie producer. Okay. And the cosmetics person didn't know this. Beautiful home, but didn't know that the husband was a movie producer. And so he said, I need a really good graphic designer because I'm going to fire this guy today. And I need somebody to come in and do all the posters and all the graphic work for marketing the movie. And I need him like right now. And so this cosmetics consultant said, "Yeah, I know a great graphic guy. He's really good. I see him every week, blah, blah, blah." Gave him the card, got his card, called the graphics person, put the two of them together. The graphics guy got the movie. He got the job. But the thing is, he got every movie after that. So he got these multiple, it ended up being, a multi-million-dollar contract. And it came from a Mary Kay consultant. Now, what if this graphic designer said, "I don't want to know with a cosmetics person, because a cosmetics person's never going to give me a big referral." That's a mindset that is completely inaccurate. The key is, was she good at what she did? Well, she was very good at what she did. And so because she was good at what she did, she met a lot of successful people. And by meeting a successful person, she was able to give an unbelievably successful referral. So the answer to your question is network with quality people at wherever they are on the food chain of success.
I guess this story is a testament of what you have said. It's like I'm really in like complete awe. I'm like, it's very, like it's not very usual that you get to hear such kind of stories that it's like it just gives it's a strong statement for the fact that you never know who the other person is, what he's capable of and what he is knowing. So yes, and yes, to all my listeners, network with quality people. Yes. And I mean, I strongly agree with you, Mr. Misner, on this. And this story has like enlightened me on so many levels. Now I myself will be like, while networking, this thing I'll also keep in mind that you never should be underestimating anyone. You never.
Yeah, you shouldn't. You shouldn't. And at the same time, you want to make sure to be educating each other, because this graphic designer had talked about, he had actually talked at a meeting once about doing posters for businesses that had or organizations that had an event, and he would design their posters. And so that clicked with her. So when he said, "I'm looking for a new graphic designer to do these posters," because this member at a meeting educated, rather than just say, "Hey, I'm a graphic designer. If you need any graphic work done, let me know." I mean, that's what tends to happen is we just shotgun our presentations. So instead, he was very specific that week about some of the kind of work, and he even brought in a few posters and showed them that week. So when you get really specific and you educate your referral partners, you want to educate referral partners that are just good at what they do. It doesn't matter if they're more successful than you or less successful than you. What matters is, are they good at what they're doing, and are you educating them how to refer you?
That's I'm so happy to hear this story. This gives me, so there are so many learnings in this one, and I'll definitely encourage my listeners to listen to this part again, this story again, because this is an interesting one, to be very honest. Frankly speaking, now I'm gonna say this story to a whole lot of people that yes, this is the power of networking. This is how networking works. This is how people work. And yes, I also have this belief that a strong network gives you a strong hold and power in any industry, be it a film production, be it cosmetics, be it corporates. A strong network gives you a strong hold in the respective industry. So how true do you think this is?
Well, no, I mean, a strong network definitely gives somebody an advantage without a doubt. because you have all of these connections that enable you to make contacts to help you in business. There was a television show in the United Kingdom years ago called The Last Millionaire. And what they did was the thing with the show was that you didn't want to be the last millionaire. You wanted to show that you were really sharp, and they would keep the people who weren't successful, and they were putting them up in, like Motel 6, no room service or anything. And these guys are, some flew in on private jets and whatnot. So you didn't want to be the last millionaire because you wanted out. And in one of the contests, they sent them to Hong Kong, and they're from the UK, and they were Hong Kong. And this one particular woman, she was the CEO of the company, but she knew one of her employees was a BNI member.
Oh.
So your question is, does your network make you stronger? Or does it help you, be successful? And this is clearly an answer of yes. She reached out to her employee and said, "Hey, could you put me in touch with a BNI chapter here in Hong Kong?" And because the task was to start a business, they were given like $1,000 and you had to start a business and you had to beat your competitors. And so she went to a BNI meeting and she kind of brainstormed with some BNI people and decided to do T-shirts that she would sell, and they'd be custom screened T-shirts. And so she literally started a business and sold her product within 1 or 2 weeks was the limit that they had. And she won. So she was not the last millionaire, but it happened because she called one of her employees who was a BNI member in the UK, and they put her in touch with a BNI chapter in Hong Kong. She goes into Hong Kong and makes this contact. Connections are incredibly powerful. And, I think I started by saying it's not the phrase, it's not what you know, it's who you know. But to be honest with you, it's not either of those. It's not what you know or who you know. It's how well you know each other that counts. I've got some really great, powerful contacts in my telephone. But the question really is not who's in my phone. The question is, who could I call? Who would take my answer? Who would answer my call? And if I ask them for a favor, would they be willing to do the favor? So it's not just who you know. It's not what you know or who you know. It's how well you know each other that counts. And when you have a powerful personal network, your chances of success go up dramatically.
I'm really loving this fact that you are answering every question with a story. That's so exciting that, like, for me personally, it makes everything so much more exciting. And I'm sure for my listeners as well, for them also, it must be super exciting to go through these stories, because in today's day and age, I guess people tend to lose interest in conversations, but when they are hearing to stories, they always stick to it. And I guess that's very much like, that's a big plus, a big add-on to this conversation. And I'm really hoping.
Well, it's always been true. Facts tell, but stories sell. And the reasons why stories work so well is that if you can tie it into the point that's you're trying to make, and your question was, are you more successful by having a powerful network? And so what I wanted to do is to give a story that illustrated how your network, she knew she had an employee that knew somebody. And so it illustrates that the point that you were asking me, which was, can your network be stronger, make your business stronger? And the answer is absolutely yes. But if I just said absolutely yes, that's not as powerful as giving an example of why it's a yes.
Very true, very true. 110% agree to that. And yes, this even I'm now I'm going to do this in my conversations as well, using stories instead of just answering the questions simply. I just learned, again, I learned something new as well over here. I just learned something new again. And that's the beauty of podcasting, I guess, and beauty of networking, that every time you get to learn something new. But as much as I'm enjoying this podcast now, it's it's tough to say, but we are now like at almost at the end of this podcast, and I guess it's now a ritual for me to say, but yes, right now time is our enemy. But I really like this conversation has been so amazing. And yes, before wrapping up, a few more questions, and then we'll be ending this session, which I don't want to end, to be very honest. I have now right now I'm having so many more things to ask you, but yes, we are at the end now and time is our enemy. So without any further ado, uh, the next question that I'm having for you is that who is Evan Meisner without BNI, without his achievements and accolades, and what made him the Dr. Evan Meisner with whom I'm sitting today?
Well, I'm not sure I understand the question. Are you asking who's the guy behind
Who
the
is the
screen with BNI?
yes? Who is the guy? Like, who is the real Evan Meisner? Not the one that who is the father of modern networking, the founder of BNI, but the real Evan Meisner, the real personality, the real Evan Meisner, who is without his achievements, without his BNI, who is the real person, with the one who is with his family, who is with his friends. Like, what he is like? I want to know more about him.
Yeah, I'm a pretty laid back guy, to be honest with you. And for the most part, what you see is what you get. Yeah, I'm not a workaholic. I certainly take time off. I believe in taking time off and recharging your battery. So I love what I do. I absolutely am passionate about BNI. I think that I think you're either working in your flame or working in your wax. And when you're working in your flame, you're on fire. You're excited. You're passionate about what you do. People can hear it in your voice. They can see it in the way you behave. When you're working in your wax, it takes all your energy away, and you can hear that in your voice, and you can see that in someone's in how they behave. So I'm lucky that I'm working in my flame, and I love what I do. But I'm pretty laid back as a rule. I love to. My favorite place on earth is to be home because I travel so much. I love being home. I have I can walk down to my boat in the lake, and I'm on about 10 acres of land. I got a lot of deer and critters running around outside. I love wine. I've got a wine cellar that I really enjoy passionately. So, but I'm actually pretty laid back. You'll be interested in reading the book Infinite Legacy because I really talk about what I think a person's legacy is in life, and the truth is your behavior is your life. How you lived your life is your legacy.
That's true. Like what you have said right now, that how you behave is what you are, and that's your legacy. The very fine example of that I got to, like experience yesterday only. That is with that is with Ratan Tata. That is with Mr. Ratan Tata. So he's like the the chairman of Tata, the chairman of Tata Company. This
Yeah, I know I know that company.
yes, and I'm sure it's like you must be very much agreeing with me on this that yes, he was such a great person, and he was like for me he was like one of those idols at whom I wanted to meet, but yesterday only we lost him, and that's something that like may his soul rest in peace. But I guess that's one great example of like what you said, a great testament, I guess, a great example of what you said. So true in on so many levels for so many people. So yes,
Yes, well, he left a great legacy. There's no question about that.
that's very true. Yes. So with that being said, we are at the end of this podcast. Before leaving, any message for our wowsome listener, for all
Yeah,
the
I think I would tell your listeners that networking is more about farming than it is about hunting. That it's really all about cultivating relationships, and that you can't use the process effectively as a face-to-face cold calling opportunity. What you want to do is really try to build connections and relationships with people, and the more you're successfully able to do that, the more powerful your network is going to be. And that's probably the most important message that I can leave everyone with.
that's
So thank you, my friend. Thanks for having me on your podcast. I appreciate it.
thank you so much, Mr. Meisner. And that's a very strong message. And yes, I hope all of my listeners, all of you guys have enjoyed this podcast session, because I personally enjoyed it. I love the way Mr. Meisner has answered all the questions with the stories, and I'm gonna use it in so many conversations. Like, I can already imagine seeing myself using so many of his stories now in my conversation. That's amazing. That's really amazing. I'm so hyped up. I was so hyped up for this podcast, and I'm so happy now that we have done this. Thank you so much, Mr. Meisner, for coming up over here. And yes, with that being
Thank
said,
you.
yes, and with that being said, we are at the end of this podcast. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. This is your host and host, Apoorv Jha, signing off. I'll meet you guys in the next episode. Till that, see you. Bye, bro.